Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Michael Siggins. I'm the founder of the Channel Pro Network. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Our network includes websites, events, and a monthly magazine for managed service providers and technology integrators. Our mission here is really a very simple one. It's to provide you with the info, insights, and resources that you need to run a more successful business. Today's webinar is a perfect example of the kind of info that can help your business. Our topic today is Red Zone Defense, eliminating vendor sprawl to win big. And it's presented by our friends at Armor. Our very special guest today is Ryan Smith. Ryan is product evangelist over at Armor. Before we begin, a couple of quick housekeeping items. We ask you to please get involved. We always encourage your feedback and questions because it makes for a better experience for everybody today. Audience members may ask questions via the Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen. We're going to follow up tomorrow with additional info and a link to the recording. Now let me turn things over to our presenter. Ryan, please take it away.
Michael, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate the partnership with Channel Pro, the great services you provide to the channel to help MSPs and others be successful as they go to market. And we're excited to be here as a partner today, talking about this important topic that we've brought you. So once again, my name is Ryan Smith. I'm the Vice President within Product Management Division at Armor and also our Product Evangelist, which means I get to come share great information with the community about how they can be successful, not only in their business, but with security in general and Armor specifically. I've been at Armor about 5 years now, and I'm mainly responsible for working with the strategic partners and how all of that product strategy and vision comes together within the culture at Armor. Previously, I've been various roles within the product organization and marketing organization here at Armor, and about 10 years building SaaS products as a whole. But enough about me. Today, I really want to dive into our agenda, which is how can we talk about security posture for managed service providers? What should they be implementing from a defense in-depth perspective, hence kind of the football defense analogy that we'll be using throughout this presentation. And specifically, what tools they should be using, how they should be using them, and how they can combat this proliferation of tools and complexity within the industry that we've seen over the years as security problems, security environments that we have to secure have proliferated. Then we'll talk about what the game plan should be for a business, how they can develop that robust security posture and program, how they can consolidate their vendor sprawl that they're seeing, and how they can really build a good defensive strategy to help them win the ball game. And then lastly, we'll cover a little bit about where Armor fits into this equation, how we can help, what services we bring to the table, and then we'll have a Q&A. However, I do encourage you throughout this webinar to drop your questions in the chat. We have moderators watching, and we'll have a great Q&A discussion at the end of this webinar. So let's dive right into the meat of the discussion. We're going to talk a little bit about what does the cybersecurity landscape look like today for the channel? Why is it so big? And what are some of the issues that come along with that? So first, let's define this concept of vendor sprawl. What is it? Well, it's the accumulation over the years of multiple point solutions to solve point problems that organizations within the channel have developed. On average, Armor sees 45 cybersecurity tools or more deployed in enterprise networks. This means over the years, companies have bought firewall to protect their networks, web application firewalls to protect the application layer of things connected to the internet. They've bought endpoint security tools to protect laptops and desktops and servers. As they move into the cloud, they're seeing the need for SaaS protection, CASB, CSPM, things like that. So as all of the environments have changed over the years, as the threat vector attack types have changed, the cybersecurity industry has maybe not done itself as many favors as we think we have, because we kept pointing out these kind of band-aids, these point solutions, which don't get me wrong, are incredibly important. And we'll talk a little bit about why having them in place is great for protection, mitigation, etc., within the security landscape of whatever environment you're protecting. But when really kind of trying to evaluate holistically what all of those data points mean for your security posture and how you would detect and respond to events if they did happen through that vector. Your staff is experiencing alert fatigue because they see so many pings from each of these tools. They don't know how to put it into a framework or an environment that really makes sense for them. So, that's what vendor sprawl is, and some of the implications it has for businesses is it just means that over the years, we've tried to do our best to combat the proliferation, the ever-changing nature, the complexity of developing, a holistic security program. That has massive operational impact today for managed service providers, staffing requirements, cost requirements, and legality requirements of maintaining so many separate contracts from so many separate vendors. And then the talent to operate them after the effect. So whether it's security or DevOps, there is always this struggle with how do we actually monitor these tools? And this is what the cyber landscape looks like for the average business and the average person in the channel looking to who should I do business with, who should I partner with, who should I offer security through to my customer base. And they look at this landscape and, it's almost laughable to the person who, is new to security because they service retail customers, they've been managing IT equipment, and they haven't been doing threat detection and response. To anybody new to this space, they look at this and are immediately overwhelmed because of the number of them, the different categories that they're in and what they mean. How many of these would I need to buy to get to 80% security, 90%? 95, 70, whatever my risk appetite is, that's a daunting question for the average service provider, the average end customer to ask themselves what do I need to be choosing? There's lots of money flowing into the space too, and everybody knows security is important. So companies are willing to pay for tools and start putting it in their budget line items and make investments in the space, but they really want to make sure they're doing kind of the, everything they need to within this picture. And I think it's shot the industry in the foot a little bit because what Armor at least sees is security is not necessarily a technology problem. If it was, we could go pick any one of these boxes, pick a vendor within it, put it into our network, and we wouldn't get breached. We would, not have data loss or ransomware occurring as frequently as it occurs today. But that's not the case. People have the right tools in place sometimes, but because they're missing the signals through the noise, they, aren't able to effectively respond. They don't have the people to respond. So when you're talking about people, expertise, making kind of operational workflow decisions of what happens in different events, these are all operational problems that technology systems don't necessarily have. So we need the technology. It's kind of your frontline defense, if you will, to the environment. It's your defensive line. But as we know, sometimes the defensive line gets breached and then your running back has to drop down and do a block. Well, if that line of defense gets breached, then your quarterback better have an option to scramble out of the network and pocket before the bad guy gets to him, so on. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but this is really the picture of the market landscape in front of us today. So what can a managed service provider looking to offer security as their portfolio, how can they piece all together those pieces that we saw within that landscape in an effective way what are some practical tips to get started? We always want to focus our conversations and our webinars we do on real world advice. So let's dive into that. First is all about strategic planning, assessing your environments and what that strategy is. So we always encourage our partners, our customers, our managed service providers that we work with within the channel to have a cybersecurity checklist. This can be an assessment of their current state of cybersecurity that is done either via software or by professionals that understand what they're looking for. Examples of this do include penetration testing, but it goes beyond that. It includes cloud security posture assessments that look at the configurations of these new environments that we're managing for our customers and ensuring that those configurations are in line with the most recent compliance and regulatory standards. These assessments are going to also outline gaps where they exist, any specific requests from your clients, what your customers have, what regulations are telling you that you need to do from a compliance strategy, what are you held to, right? And then it's about visibility, auditing, knowing what you have, because so many people out there don't even have a clear picture of what's available to them within their current environment, what people are using, what risk that introduces within the environment. So you really need to list the current security tools that you're using. What are their key features? What are they meant to protect? And take an honest look at how proficient you and the team are about using the capabilities of each of those tools. We're all incredibly smart people within the channel. We've worked with a lot of software before. We've done a lot of management software before. So it makes sense with security that we would take a tools first approach to, try and solve that problem. However, the first time a person who's been managing an Active Directory server tries to write a SIM rule, it's a different experience. It's a completely different skill set. So that skills assessment will really tell you where you might need some of that operational assistance, but it might also tell you where you already have great telemetry tools, protection mechanisms in place, because you've already made smart investment strategies and security technologies to help protect you and your customers. Ultimately, make sure that whatever strategy you're defining here aligns with your business goals. I mentioned this before, very few managed service providers are MSSPs specifically. And so a lot of MSPs that we've talked to said they recognize that there is a huge opportunity, both revenue and growth-wise, with security as part of their portfolio. They also recognize that their customers are asking them for security on a regular basis. So they have a customer base that trusts them, that they have a relationship that they build. That relationship is sacred. They have an offering that they know that they the customer base wants. But then when they go to actually take that into market, they realize all of the operational uplift that comes with standing up a security practice, the additional talent they have to hire with specific skill sets, what they have to pay that talent, the different landscape of tools that they have to manage and maintain, so they can have a proper defense in-depth strategy that they're working on, and then what it takes to build out a SOC. They realize that that doesn't necessarily align with their business goals of managing a customer's IT environment and only staying within that wheelhouse. And so what we encourage you is to look at how can you improve your cybersecurity posture, your offerings, all the while making sure that margin, revenue opportunity, operational uplift, what types of businesses you want to support and be in, align with that overall strategy. And then analyze your potential ROI on any strategy that you're going to implement. Use total cost of ownership as a great benchmark. There's some fantastic calculators out there. There's also reports from analyst groups and third-party market research that do total economic impact studies to determine the value of new vendors, payback periods, their offerings. These are great ways to for you to validate, but also get external validation from the market around, which vendors, which service providers really can help implement the best security strategy for you. Tip number 2 is about asking the right questions of your vendors, of your service providers, because it will help you get a clearer picture of how they approach the complexity of the security landscape today. You want to be able to walk away with a very clear understanding of your service providers of what they are doing and what they are not doing on your behalf, because there's a lot of gray areas. There's a lot of promises that sound similar. There's a lot of lingo that makes it sound like everybody's doing the same thing. So being able to have a quality, consistent dialogue with your vendor or service provider is important. So, here's a couple of questions that we have found useful as we look to partners within the channel, and that partners within the channel have asked us as they look to do business with Armor as a, managed detection response, a cybersecurity services provider that is able to, help them take security to market for their customer base. So that we get asked a lot, how do we unify security across the full environment? Because as we've seen in some of the earlier slides, and we've talked about a little bit, is there's tremendous complexity in environments today. When we thought about security 15 years ago, it was relatively a walled garden of, well, everything's within our data center, within the walls of our organization, and everything's behind a firewall, and all assets are, under our control and licensed by the organization. And so it was, relatively static picture of what needed to be protected and what we had under our control at all layers of the stack to protect. But then as, public clouds come out, as we've seen different deployment strategies within those cloud environments, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, that have different shared responsibility models. As people are deploying in hybrid and multi-cloud environments, as we focus more on, what happens to the network as everybody goes remote and brings their own device. That's a lot for a company to think about, how do I start securing all those things? So find out from your vendor partner, how they approach that scenario. Do they have technology that helps at each layer? If it's not technology, what are they doing to understand data from other things that you might have at that later within your environment? How is all of this going to work together? So when you put a defense on the field, to go back to our football analogy, you have your defensive line, you have your cornerbacks on that side, you have your safety back there monitoring, and your linebackers, right? So it is about how do we have all these layers working in concert together, so the quarterback doesn't throw a home run and exfiltrate the data with the receiver to the other end zone. And so when you're also evaluating the vendor, talk about any requirements across longer time horizons, or what are the time horizons by which your vendors are thinking about and their roadmaps are built. Roadmaps are always going to change at a tactical level, month to month, quarter to quarter. But really, what does the security philosophy of the company look like? And does it align to where the market's going in a few years? Or does the roadmap feeling like, well, I might be buying this tool now, but I'm only buying it as a stopgap because they're not going to address this new environment or terrain here in a couple of years, or they only want to focus on this particular cloud, and we have cloud services in this area. So look strategically and look a little ahead. Immediate features are important. Immediate ask and requirements will always be important, but also make sure your security philosophies align with where the roadmap's headed. What is implementation like? How long does it take? Are they a partner with you? Because that's one thing is we've come used to software as a service, being able to sign in, configure a few things. But with security, because so much of it is specific to the environment, the data that is specific to the environment, what threats are relevant, data classification schemes within that environment. Implementation is never necessarily turnkey, even though companies can make it that way. But they just hand over the keys to the software. Is there a services or a realization period with the software? Do they help implement it? What does that look like? And what's the division of responsibility there? And then holistically, what's the division of responsibility between MSPs and the vendor for when a critical issue takes place? So this is a question we get asked a lot by our managed service providers who are using our services to secure their customer bases. Hey, when a threat actor has a breach, or when there's a potential compromise, or notice a attack happening actively, who is on the phone with the customer at 3 a.m. in the morning? Who is the one who's actually fingers on keyboard on the box doing the remediation? I think you're going to see this question be critically important in the managed security services and managed detection and response pace that is coming up, because everybody's been really good on detections, alerting, reporting, analytics, but there's two areas where these security services will be pushed on by their partners and by their customer base. The first is, well, what additional mitigation do you offer to make sure these things never happen in the first place? But also on the back end, and probably more important than the mitigation piece, is what are you doing for remediation, and how far does that go? How much of that is automated? What do we need to really focus on from that aspect versus the vendor? And then, what specific aspects of the ongoing SOC operations is the person handling? So this is, once again, a division of responsibility question, but it probably also goes back to the fact that most customers, most service providers, actually most of everybody just wants to feel secure, wants to entrust that feeling of security to somebody else, because we all don't know the myriad of ways, we're not experts in the myriad of ways in which we could become insecure. And so, what aspect of that service are you relying on your partner for, versus what do you want to build yourself within your business? And then it goes back to the strategic alignment and business model from the first slide here under tips of, does it align to what we want to do strategically and what's in the business model? And then lastly, what type of access do you have? Do you have access to their SOC, their compliance individuals? Is it a true partnership, or once again, is it just kind of those technology pieces pulled out into that? Number three, we've talked about this a little bit, but technology is a great first step. We're firm believers in the power of technology to help security scale. We think that that's going to continue to scale throughout the years. But you can't necessarily always rely on technology for the end-to-end security of your customer base. Deployment's a great example. Deployment with a customer can ruin that customer's trust. You want to minimize delays with the vendor. You want to make sure they're actively available during deployment cycles. You want to make sure that you have a on-call team that can be called during the deployment to work out any bugs or issues. And you want to see whether it works with your current deployment mechanism. So if you are deploying software, can you deploy it via your CI/CD or automated deployment chains, etc. 24/7, 365 guided remediation. We think this is, one of the biggest things. People don't necessarily get it at the security sprawl conversation, or that statement that security is an operations problem, not a technology problem, is that despite all our best efforts, despite the great technology that we lay down, we will get alerted one day that that preventative mechanism failed. There will be a new signature that hasn't been classified by the systems. Maybe there will be good looking behavior because somebody actually logged in with a legitimate username and password because one of your employees was victim to a social engineering attack. So in the events where the alerting, the protection fails, what are we doing to detect and respond in the case of the event? So you need to have a vendor who can be available, not only around the life cycle of the clock, but guide you in remediating various issues. SOC engineers, analysts, people that actually have the security expertise. We've seen this time and time again. We talked about it a little before with Joe, who's been managing an AD server, needs to now write rules in a SIM and tune out false positives. And he eventually gets alert fatigue from not only all of the operational work of integrating these security systems with each other, but the lack of understanding of writing rule sets and playbooks and how that can facilitate getting to answer quicker. Threat research teams, how can you anticipate? What are you doing proactively? How are you monitoring the latest techniques and procedures? What threat intelligence are you using? Are you on the messaging boards of the various hacker groups to understand what's being actively exploited in the wild these days? Certified compliance specialists, this compliance is something that everybody wish was automated with technology, but very rarely is. You have to have the auditors, the GRC professionals, the people who can provide the evidence, do the questionnaires with you if you're going to easily or more easily make it through those scenarios. And ultimately, you need support for your growing business outside of security too. This is one thing I've seen that the traditional point security vendors don't get, particularly in channel, is that yes, we can always deliver a product in channel that somebody could resell, make a 20% margin on, but that doesn't, while that helps them grow their business, that doesn't help them grow their business in the sense of we want higher margin for your business. We want to invest not just in being the security partner, but how do you break into the security market? How do you sell it? How do you market it? What campaigns are effective? What lead generation activities work? How can the partners cross-sell and upsell to their base? What webinars need to be put on? Things like that. So I think when you're evaluating vendors, ask them what they're going to do to help you grow security as a practice, not necessarily just sign over a paycheck to them and get their contract signed and then you'll never hear from them again. So I think if you focus vendor questions and if you think about all of the areas in which technology is not going to necessarily provide the answer right off the bat, I think you start getting a clear picture of maybe ways in which you can combat this vendor sprawl that we'll be talking about in a minute. So we'll get to what Armor can offer next, and then I do know we have some questions rolling in, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So I think when you're thinking about a security partner in the channel, when you're looking at security vendors within the channel. Any solution you come across within that cyber landscape that we showed earlier probably needs to, help with different types of risks, provide certain outcomes to you. It needs to be a solution that has certain feature sets or is deployed in certain ways, and it needs to grant you certain visibility within the environments. For armor, the ideal solutions or surface sets, right? Because there's not a single technology that can do all of these things, is how can we begin as an industry to bring together intentional and accidental risk? Intentional risk, we all know about. We hear it every time there's a ransomware hack. The evil bad guys in hoodies are out to get us, and they've done something bad to penetrate a network, lock up some resources. They're asking for ransomware in a cryptocurrency framework. And that is intentional. They are coming after targets, whether because they think they're easy money, whether because they have critical data, whether for hacktivism reasons. The motives can change, but they're always intentionally coming after the business. Accidental is caused by human error, mistakes, things that we don't always plan for, because to err is human. These are things like the developer, when they're configuring their data storage policies, left an S3 bucket open to the world and the public internet accessible. They didn't do that maliciously. They didn't mean for the customer database and those card numbers to get stolen, but they needed it. They were just working late at night. Click save a little too early before changing the port number and forgot about it and moved on. Well, threat actors are always going to look for the easiest door to walk through before they try and break any locks. And so this accidental risk and bringing it together with our kind of common perceptions of intentional cyber risk is important. Especially in environments like the cloud, because the cloud is relatively secure, but how we use it isn't always. And so, having an understanding of that accidental risk will be important. Then it needs to bring together both kind of security and compliance. Too long in our industry have these factions been opposed to some extent, but really they're all after the same thing. What should businesses be doing to decrease risk, to build the best defensive posture within their organization? And as they think about delivering those outcomes, most people don't think about it in terms of, well, I need this type of security protection because I have applications in the cloud, and so I'm going to need these tools and I'm going to need to do these things. No, your average CEO, thinks about it in terms of, am I in the news or not? Did I pass my audit, and am I allowed to pay, process payment, over the next 3 months? So these are the ways in which people think about these things. And so this is the way vendors and the channel should start talking about them, is we keep you secure, we keep you compliant. We're the experts at that. So let us focus on how to do it. We can do that in consultation with you, whatever you have already up in the environment. But, we're the ones that are best suited to bring those outcomes together and to the forefront of the table. And then lastly, how can we provide solutions that are flexible? Not everything we're going to be able to go into a customer and rip and replace. A lot of times we're going to have to work with what we've already sold them, what we're managing on their behalf, what firewalls they already use, what AV and EDR systems they have. And so being flexible enough to integrate with the PSAs and RMMs in the channel and work with the operational processes that we've developed in channel, then I think the solutions are going to be better off. Solutions have to be speedier. It can't take 6 months to implement a security solution today. We deploy software at the click of a button. We should be able to deploy security similarly. Yes, it takes tuning. Yes, it takes configuration. Yes, there is more uplift, but we have to keep with the speed and simplicity of how you know, individuals, businesses interact with these services today. And then security has to be scalable. We've seen we're in multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. We have people outside the network, inside the network. We have businesses that are servicing billions of people around the globe, all the way down to kind of your mom and pop. So you have to have that flexibility and scale as well. And flexibility in the environment and visibility that you provide within the solutions. And so Armor takes all of that to heart. We think we do a lot of those things that are classified as, things that you should be looking for in a security solution. At our heart, Armor is a cybersecurity services company that helps managed service providers protect their customers and themselves wherever they're at. So whether that's endpoints, the cloud, containers, the network, we are there as your partner to help you have the security and compliance conversations in a streamlined, singular solution that can be provided both in a turnkey and extensible manner to what's already in the environment. So like we said, we wanted to have visibility into all of the environments, AWS, Azure, GCP, private cloud, hybrid, multi, wherever you're running those things, has to be easily deployable. So the software we use to enable our security service on the back end, and that allows our SOC to do threat detection and response, our GRC to offer compliance services, the software that they use to help secure those environments gets deployed within the customer environment within minutes. Our software is built for the channel. It's multi-tenant. It has account and user and RBAC and all of that very well architected and defined. Billing rollups, reporting views, all of that is built for other service providers to bring security portfolio items to market using Armor as the trusted technologies and services provider to provide that. We do have a number of technology pieces within the platform that provide endpoint security from AV to malware protection, vulnerability scanning, FIM, IDS, IPS, to public cloud assessment and logging products that allow us to ingest firewall log data from whatever firewalls you're using, or cloud data from whatever clouds you're using, or other AV devices, and bring that back into kind of our unified management console and visibility layer. But then once again, it's not about just the protections we can lay down, where we can lay them down, how easily we can deploy all of that software, but it's what are we going to do once that software is deployed on your behalf? Well, we are going to be experts at your side. We're going to have the whole left side of this equation, which is how do we do the security support, from threat intelligence, proactive threat hunting, to the security operations center actually doing incident management and response with you on your behalf within the channel. How are we doing security engineering to keep pace with the latest connections we need into different environments, or the rule sets we need that allow us to detect and alert on different tactics, techniques, and procedures that the threat actors are using? What is our support function? Who's answering the phone at 3 a.m.? Who is dealing with your unhappy customer in these very sensitive scenarios of cybersecurity breaches? On the GRC side, how can we help you reduce your audit time by 30–40%? Not only with software that provides evidence in a box, but also with our people who not only help us take care of our PCI and SOC and HIPAA and high trust audits, but allow our customers to do the same. And then how do we help grow your business? So whether it's solution engineers and account managers to help you have the hard sales conversations and generate interest in leads, to qualifying those leads, to having the sales kickoffs with them, to having the initial deployment and installation, to having marketing support, campaign-wise, cross-sell, upsell, things like that. All of these things have to come together to provide a service for you on top of all of that great technology. So not only can we consolidate all of the vendor sprawl by offering a number of these services under one unified platform, but we have the services layer to help manage all of that vendor complexity, all of the security complexity that comes with going to business within this new market. And so we're going to definitely get to some questions here, but before I do, I want to highlight a few things. The first is a demo. If you email msp@armor.com and note the Channel Pro December webinar, you'll be kicked back some automated resources, a scheduling link to get your demo booked. And you'll also be entered in for some drawings we have for people that sign up and show up to their demos, which are great. But you'll also be able to just learn more about Armor, the security services we provide, and what that looks like as you're delivering those things in channel to your customer base. And then we have our data sheets here. This will be available to you after the call and on the event page. But because we do have about 20 minutes or so that we could possibly use up. If not, we'll make it earlier. I did want to answer a few of the questions that we've seen today. So the first of that is a question from Frank, and it's about, in today's environment, we see competitors like Huntress, Perch, Rocket Cyber, Scout. Oh, it looks like Ike's actually been answering some of these already in the Q&A window, so I'm a little behind. So Michael, Ike, anybody, what other questions do we have from the panelists today? If not, I know I see a few here coming in on my end.
Actually, Ryan, those responses to those questions only went to the asker of the question. So what I was going to suggest, if you'd like those questions, and they seem like there's a bunch of good ones in there, you can maybe kind of read them, or I can read them to you, and you can respond to our whole audience. You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a great idea.
All right. So thanks to Ike behind the scenes, but I think, we can share more info with more people. So you want to talk about the competitors first, kind of the differentiators and who's out there?
Yes, certainly. So we did have a question about competitors, differentiation within the market, where we see ourselves within that broad competitive landscape. So I think when you're looking specifically within the channel, you're going to see security vendors and providers provide a number of different types of services. There's going to be the tool providers like Webroot that have AV software that the channel has been using for a really long time. Then there are going to be your platform and service providers that blend those things a little bit, such as I think Ike was mentioning Scout, Huntress, things like that. I think Armor's differentiation is something that we've talked about throughout this webinar, which is we recognize that critical distinction that security is always going to be an operations problem, not just a technology problem. But on the operations side, it's not just a SOC backing you. It's what does that SOC do on your behalf? What does remediation look like as we're getting deeper into some of these MDR discussions with our providers? How far are they going on you? But beyond that, what are they doing for your business as well? So I think one of Armor's value is, we have great people like Ike and his team who can help you plan campaigns in a box and deliver that material through our partner portal. We have Barry and our solutions engineering team who are fantastic about doing a 30-day realization journey with our channel partners to make sure that they know how to have pre-sales conversations so he can provide demo support from his team for as long as they need to feel comfortable with that, to do training and certification. So it's really, I think, while a lot of features out there are the same, a lot of people claim to have the same things, it's really about who's going to do the most for your business as you look to grow your business.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for that. A few people were asking about some links, and I encourage our audience to look in the chat area. We do have some links to some of the, you can have direct links there to some of the things that you can see up in the slide there. All right, what about Kubernetes and protection there?
Yeah, so things that we've focused on in the past is anything you might have in place for us to do log ingestion on, where we can look at the telemetry coming out of those environments and provide services. If you have access to the host in which you're running the Kubernetes services, then a lot of our workload protection features, file integrity monitoring, and next, AV services on those box, intrusion prevention of, traffic flow coming in and out of that cluster. All are things that we have both protective measures against and visibility into. Where Armor will always look to continue to expand is how do we address more platform as a service implementations of Kubernetes. In the past, we've done pre-runtime vulnerability scanning of container registries and their images and reported back on that from a risk perspective of, hey, what vulnerabilities exist within these registries and their images, and how can we provide patch information on those things prior to those containers being introduced into a runtime environment. But like I said, as the industry continues to evolve, as we see more adoption from that across the channel, particularly the SMB market, then I think you're going to see all of that be brought into Armor's detection and response service. We'll just either deploy technology to offer protection ourselves or ingest that from other sources.
Okay, another question on the Kubernetes. Any other features on the future roadmap that you could share, or any ideas there?
Yeah, currently, nothing publishable at the time that I can share. I don't want to get in trouble with our product management teams. But it is a conversation that we have, like I said, from what are the new tactics, techniques, and procedures that threat actors are using within those environments, and do our current detections that we have within our security service align to stopping those threats or not? If there's gaps in the detections that we have, then we will always be adding those to our SOC. So you can always assure that we are adding to our detection and response library, but more to come on specifics at a later date related to what we'll do with containers as a whole.
Excellent. David's asking, what language is the platform developed?
So various languages, that we support, platforms, cloud hosted in AWS, but from a code perspective, I'll keep proprietary a little bit about what we're using, but it's just SaaS software that you access.
Okay, and then looks like those are all the questions we've got right now, Ryan. I think you said some came directly into you as well.
Yes, a couple came directly into me. So, one of the questions that we get a lot is, well, great, the service sounds great. The ability to consolidate these things is copacetic and everything. But I've already bought a lot of these tools and I have pieces in place. What should I do then? I think one of the things we need to look at is, cool. Yeah, you've made those investments, right? It's sunk costs that you have within your security infrastructure and environment. So I think the first thing you need to look at is what are the contracts on those? How recently did you sign some? Are any expiring? Would you want to consolidate any of those services into a single service? Are you happy with the services that you do have deployed? If so, you may not need to displace anything, and you can ask your service provider or your vendor partner what they have from an integration perspective that allows them to work with those tools. And that's what Armor's answer is we understand that some people in the market, particularly on the SMB side, want a completely turnkey service. You do everything for me. You have total cost of ownership. And that's fine. And we will recommend our stack, put our things in place, and deliver our service on top of that. However, there will always be situations where a vendor needs to maintain that flexibility that we talked about earlier in this presentation around, what data they're interacting with. And that's another reason why security is a operations problem, not a technology problem. Is when we think about you already having a firewall or already having an AV device within your network, we just see AV data that's going to get us intelligence about malware and process level information within systems and environment. We don't see a Webroot or a CrowdStrike or a Carbon Black or anything. We see an outcome for the customer, which is protect you against malicious software. And so the tools in the end, I think matter and don't matter, right? So it goes back to that strategy of what aligns with your business goals, what aligns with your budget, what do you have? But at the end of the day, you have to take all of that and operationalize it into that outcome of staying compliant and staying out of the news because you've not been breached. And if you think you could do that on your own, that's great. If not, look to a detection or response and a service provider partner who can help operationalize those things for you. And then I think I had just one more question come in, which is I'm an MSP partner or I'm a managed service provider. What are you doing, Armor, for me as opposed to your direct customers, or do you even do anything in the direct space anymore? And I would say, we're a channel company, right? So our focus these days is to help the channel secure themselves and their customer base wherever they're at. And so we want to work with other managed service providers who already have the trust relationship with their customers, who are looking to capture this huge security market with lots of growth, but don't have the people, don't have the time, have some of the tools, but not the strategy of how to align those tools. And so that's what Armor can do. Is Armor can be the defensive coach, if you will, to bring it full circle back to our football analogy. Who defensive player coach is even a better example, who can help organize the team while they're on the field, both from a personnel perspective, where should everybody be, what should their response be, how should we be reacting to the offensive tirade coming at us, but also execute that defense and keep us safe, prevent the threat actors from scoring touchdowns in our environment, which is making off with our customers' data, which is the holy grail. So, that's what Armor can be for you, is that defense in-depth security services provider that can help you provide that full coverage to your defense and help you win big.
All right. Question of if you guys are channel only.
Yes, channel only, as a company. So we started as a direct company, so we obviously still have direct customers that, we're figuring out, what that looks like in the future. And we'll always continue to service everybody from a security and compliance outcomes perspective. But we are a channel only company.
Oh, excellent. Well, looks like that wraps up all of our questions today, Ryan. What else have you got for us, or what do you want to wrap us up with?
No, I'll just wrap us up with a wholehearted thank you. I think everybody's probably glad that there's not 30 more minutes of this because I think it's hard to listen to anybody talk for that long. But we certainly thank you for joining us on this Thursday on your lunch break. Hopefully everybody learned something and found this valuable. Reach out to us at msp@armor.com if you have any further questions. And lastly, thank you to Channel Pro. None of this could be done without your support, both for the channel, your partners. This is incredibly impactful for us to be able to do. And so we thank you for the time today to get up and share with your community things that we think are important.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you. Appreciate the good words. I mean, we're sort of in this great position where we're trying to bring the MSPs together on one side and vendors like you on the other, and we're just sort of the matchmaker here, the yenta here. So we appreciate it. And listen, thank you very, very much. Great info today. Again, we're going to follow up tomorrow with a link to the recording and some other info, no doubt. While I'm wrapping up here, just for another little bit, if anyone wants to scan through the chat area, there's a number of links there that we encourage you to click on and bookmark before we leave, plus an email address. And at least one of our audience says, thank you for not torturing them with too many PowerPoint slides, Ryan. So you're scoring points everywhere today, Ryan.
There we go. There we go. Awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you, everybody.
You all have a great day. And Ryan, thanks again. Appreciate Armor. And we will talk to you all soon. That's it for today. Bye-bye now.